Hello. This week we're going to talk about math development. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint that goes with that. This is a really important topic because I can assure you that math is a very strong subject on the early childhood OSAT, especially math terminology. So pay close attention, download the PowerPoint because it just gives you some great definitions and you need to know them. Okay, so we've got three big groupings here on the Oklahoma Academic Standards when it comes to math. It's numbers and operations, geometry and spatial sense, patterns and measurement. And you're going to be held responsible for teaching those, whether you're doing pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, or third. You're just going to teach them at a different level. So when we talk about numbers and operations, that's really the most basic because that's your number sense. It's the ability to think about numbers and to understand what we use numbers for. We use them to count, we use them to use money, so on and so forth. It's just the idea of having a sense of what numbering is. The next thing is the operations piece, and that's the formal math term referring to addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of numbers. Now, obviously, you're not going to be doing that if you're teaching pre-K, but in pre-K, you are going to teach that number sense. By the time you get to kindergarten, you're still working on number sense, but you're also working on other pieces of this. Numbers and operations includes numeration, which means identifying what a number is. What is that line that just does this? Well, that's a 1, but you have to be able to know that. Estimation, that's also an important piece of numbers and operations, but I can tell you, this does not develop in pre-K, does not develop in kindergarten, and it's starting to come around in first grade, but not real great. Children have difficulty estimating. So please don't use that in pre-K lessons and as something that you need to assess because it's not going to work. But I do recommend if you're teaching early childhood to have a clear plastic or glass jar and have items in it, not real small items, because again, estimation develops first with big items and then they get smaller and smaller and smaller. So when I was teaching first grade, I always had a plastic jar about this big, and I would have maybe 10 golf balls, 10 ping pong balls, but they were pretty good size. And at the beginning of the year when I was doing my math, and I'd say, all right, ladies and gentlemen, how much is in here? Raise your hand and tell me what you think. And I'd write them all on the board. Well, I would get, 110, 3,000. So that's where we started from. And then after you have write everybody's down, it's okay. All guesses are good. And then you take them all out and the kids count with you as you're counting them. So that's how you work on estimation. And again, you have to start with bigger items and then gradually work down to marbles or beans or whatever you're going to use. The next thing you're going to be held responsible for knowing and teaching is cardinality. How many are in a set? I can look at these balloons and instantly tell that's 3. But it's developing that ability to do that is the development of cardinality. And that's something that you do teach in pre-K, kindergarten. The next one is ordinality. Ordinality is your place in line. I want to be first. Well, that's cardinality. No one wants to be last. Cardinality. I'll tell you how I taught that when I taught kindergarten and first grade. I would line my boys and girls up in 2 lines when it was time to go to the bathroom and the lunchroom and recess and so on and so forth. Always had a line leader that changed out every day. But beside the line leader, everyone lined up by their first name, ABC order. That achieved a few things for me. First of all, when I said it's time to line up, there was not a stampede to the door. No one got hurt. Everyone moseyed to the door because they knew I have to stand wherever I stand. Unless I'm the line leader, I get to be in the front. That's just the way it is. The other thing that it did, it taught my students how to alphabetize, which is a huge skill, is learning how to alphabetize. And a lot of people do this with worksheets, but it's so meaningless. It's so much more meaningful when they're lining up to go to recess or something, and they know they have to be in ABC order, and everyone's very concerned with where they stand. If you are not in your place in line, they will definitely point it out to you. So ordinality is much easier to teach when you do it with the children's names than with a worksheet, just putting that out there. And that's also a behavior management strategy, is having them in ABC order by first name when they're in line, because there's no pushing and shoving to get in the front. You are where you are, and that's it. You're also going to be teaching place value. This is more kindergarten, first grade, second and third. And you do that, you've seen these counting the days sticks. So that's very common. You start out with the ones, and you've got your little sticks in there for the ones. And then when you get 10 sticks, then you put a rubber band and you've got your tens. And then in January, it's very exciting. You do your 100th day and you put 10 tens on, and a big rubber band around that, because it's such a clear visual of what 100 looks like versus the 10 and the ones. So that's what we do. One of the things that you really focus on in pre-K is one-to-one correspondence in counting objects. And the very easiest way to do that is to have, a center like the kitchen center, and make sure you've got 4 of everything. If you're having a kitchen center and you're ready to let them set the table or something, 4 cups, 4 spoons, 4 plates, 4 napkins, whatever it is, a 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. One of the things that I really like to point out is that you've got to teach your children to be divergent thinking. There's more than one way to do things. For instance, when I was teaching first grade, we would practice our divergent thinking skills when we were learning how to count coins. You're going to have coins all the way up to $1 in first grade. And what I would do is take a 4 square, where you fold a piece of paper, just white piece of paper like that, and fold it hot dog, and one more time, and it's the hamburger fold. Have them draw with a pencil, so you've got the lines, and that way you got your 4 boxes. And then this they did at the math center, and I would have on a whiteboard however much money I wanted them to to practice with. For today, I'd say 84 cents. So they would write 84 cents on their paper. But then they would have to, I had a great big tub of plastic money, and they would literally have to lay out on that paper 4 different ways of coming up with 84 cents. And then they would have to, I'd have them circle in each little quadrant how they did it. After they laid it out, they'd have to just draw, 4 pennies and, 8 dimes or whatever it is, just circle, 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 and put the money amount in. So that would keep a record of what they used to make their 84 cents. And it had to be 4 different ways. And then once they're done in the math center, I have them lay that paper on their table or desk, and we check it. After our center time, we always had a come back together time, and we would check our math papers. And I would just say, okay, I need some idea of how you all made 84 cents. I would have everybody share how they did that. And it was fun because someone would say, oh, I did it just like you. And when on occasion it was like, wow, no one else did it that way. So it's a fun way to give them an opportunity for divergent thinking. Geometry and spatial sense, you're doing a lot of teaching of shapes when you're in pre-K and kindergarten. By first grade, they should know all of these shapes up here. And in first grade, you generally come up with the three-dimensional shapes. Okay, one of the ways that you teach shapes is obviously by having paper that's been cut into shapes and talking about it, and they use it to create things with. These shaped blocks are great. I really like this. When I was teaching three-dimensional shapes in first grade, I would get spaghetti, actually linguine because they're a little bit wider, and Play-Doh. And then they would need to make the cube and the rectangular prism. Of course, you can't use it to make a cylinder, sphere, or cone, but you can also do a pyramid with it. Pretzels and marshmallows are wonderful too, as you can see. Patterns and measurement, very important. Obviously, you're going to do a ton of sorting if you're teaching pre-K and kindergarten. By the time they get into first grade, you're going to have more along the lines of sorting, because they're going to start out with a simple A, B, A, B, A, B, but they're going to get much more difficult as the year progresses. Also, ordering from smallest to largest and largest to smallest is something you're going to start in pre-K, and it should be pretty much done by the time you're in kindergarten. Seriating, another important math skill, where you order things by size, color, or some other characteristic. These paint chips are fantastic because they're free. And so I would get some good paint chips, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, and just cut them up. You would cut in between these lines and then have little baggies in your centers where they had to seriate these by color. Measurement, you're going to be held responsible for teaching measurement. If you're teaching pre-K and kindergarten, it's going to be all non-standard units. You're going to have them use their feet to measure big items. You're going to have them use maybe crayons or Unifix cubes or pens or pencils or markers, but they do not use a ruler in pre-K and kindergarten. They learn about patterns and measurements when they have some real opportunities to use charts and be able to create them. When I did my Apple unit every year in first grade, this is exactly what I did. I had a laminated chart, no inventing the wheel every year. You just laminate it the first time and then you're done with it, okay? So I just roll it up and put it in my closet for next year when they were done. And then I would just run off a bunch of apples and give them each an apple to color and put their name on. And then when they were done, they would get to Scotch tape it to whatever was their favorite apple that they tasted. And so that teaches them, you have to show them where to start, because sometimes they want to start their graph at the end, but you teach where graphs begin, always left to right. And since this is a bar graph, and I would literally say, you're going to put it on a bar graph because that bar goes all the way across. And then we would count, and I would write the number at the end, and we would decide who had the most and who had the least. It's a great way to teach math vocabulary. You can do it with eye color, hair color, favorite food and color. How we get to school. Do you come by bus, or do you walk, or do you have a car that drives you? So that's a lot of fun. This is really a neat video. You will see some questions that refer to Constance Camille on the OSAT. She is a famous math person in early childhood, and her methodology is all about having children think about how they are constructing math and how they're working problems, rather than just using a formula. So it's short and it's interesting, and I hope you have an opportunity to watch it. Developing math games is another great way to use children's literature. You can make your own math games. I mean, there's a ton of games out there that you can create that reinforce whatever you're trying to teach in your literacy unit. So you can look at that. And there you go. Okay, so this week, let me get out of that. This week is, as I said, mathematical development. There's your Breda Camp. PowerPoint I just used is here, and you're going to complete content review 4 by the due date. Please let me know if you've got any questions. I'll be happy to set up a Zoom, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.